to the film that we just saw. And then what I'd like to do is pass around the mic and have anybody who's interested ask our panelists or raise questions about either the documentary we saw tonight or global climate change or what we might be doing locally or in the state of Missouri. So as Manta mentioned earlier, we invited Judy Baker, and I guess she's still at her other event right now, so I'll move to the other people on the panel. The first one is Bill Allen, assistant professor, holds degrees in biology, English, history, and journalism, and he studied, lived, and worked in Chicago, Champaign-Urbana, St. Louis, and now Columbia. He spent fellowships in Boston, Louisville, Kentucky, and Managua, Nicaragua. Bill was a science writer for the United Nations Sigma Xi Scientific Expert Group on Climate Change and Sustainable Development, and he helped with a report on mitigating and adapting to climate change issued in December 2006. Currently, he's the coordinator of the Agriculture Journalism Program of the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, and he's an adjunct faculty member at the School of Journalism at the University of Missouri. Our next panelist is Greg Suler. He is a founding and managing member of Dynamic Predictables, which does climate prediction for business. In 1977-79, he helped found and was one of the leaders in the American agriculture movement. He served as a White House Fellow on the White House Domestic Policy staff in 1979 and 1980. He worked on agriculture and rural, rail, and truck re-regulation and alternative energy, mainly biofuels. Mr. Suler was the White House point man during the 1980 heat and drought that we experienced then, and in the Ford Carter American Agenda project to advise the incoming president. Mr. Suler was cited through involvement in both agriculture and environmental global change task forces. He was a Japan Fellow in 1988 and 89, living in Japan and Asia, learning about those countries. And from 1988 to 2000, he worked in management at the University of Missouri's branch of the Food and Agriculture Policy Research Institute, and was involved in the formation in early years of the Rural Policy Research Institute. And then fourth panelist is Monta Welch. She has over a decade of experience working in small business in the retail industry during the 1970s and the 1980s. She left the industry to raise two children, now aged 17 and 21, and they attend Northridge High School in the University of Missouri and are Columbia natives. Concerned that there was no local focus on climate change, Ms. Welch stepped up to start raising more awareness of the impacts of global climate change and organizing individual efforts to take local, state, and national action. She founded the Columbia Climate Change Coalition at the end of 2006 and the beginning of 2007, and is currently serving as the executive director.
My background, I've been asked to speak about the react to it as to the movie as a journalist and as a journalism educator, and somebody who knows a little bit about science and has worked with scientists. And I think I might start by saying how much I identify with the story of Ross Gelfman, the Boston Globe reporter who spent 30 years doing good journalism and then got into the climate change debate and was particularly intrigued by the payments under the table, so to speak, of the scientists who testified on behalf of the fossil fuel industry in Minnesota. And it wasn't just Minnesota they did this, but all over the place. And of course, the term for folks like that is bioprostitutes. And there's a lot of ways we can criticize the performance of the news media in revealing the story of climate change. But I think the constraints of the news media, the fact that reporters often don't have a science background and aren't confident about their ability to find the truth in a very complicated subject like this, makes them fall back on traditional values and norms of journalism, which is to be accurate in quoting both sides of a story, and to be objective about that, not decide for themselves, not to reveal their opinion. And those are ideals that we fall back on in a complicated story. And of course, that is what the fossil fuel industry and its public relations submarine took advantage of. Just as, I might add, they did in the smoking debate. The fact that reporters like me would cover the smoking and health issue and be required by our editors to call, even when a new study came out showing the negative health effects, to call the Tobacco Institute or one of the people say, well, that's all, the study's hogwash. Well, now we getting toward the end of my 4 minutes, and what can we do as we go on from here? You expect me to say this, journalism training of reporters, not just science writers, but others to understand this story and its dynamics, which will be one of the big stories of the 21st century in all its effects. Secondly, to understand the story no longer is there global warming, or are humans contributing to it in a major way by burning fossil fuels? Those stories are over. That's done. That's over. What now is the story is we report the events of, unfortunately, disaster that's going to occur, and we also help report the thinking that's going to go on about how to adapt to the many, many changes that are going to occur and how we can mitigate or lessen the impact of some of those changes. One other thought I might add is to urge any journalists who might be listening that to expand their values and norms of accuracy and objective reporting and, quote, balance, unquote, to include a new way of thinking about reporting, and that would be something that has been termed weight of evidence reporting. In other words, if you find out that 999 scientists have reached a consensus about what's going on at this given moment on a complicated issue like climate, and you find one that doesn't agree, you sort of, on the continuum of truth, you can fairly safely and responsibly report that to your readers. And I think that was missing from a lot of the climate coverage. Of course, I'm excluding people like Andy Revkin at the New York Times and many, many others.
I was initially asked to comment on business and climate change. We do site-specific and regional climate prediction going out 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and use primarily natural climate dynamics to do so. I've had perspectives shared with a number of top Fortune 500 companies, indicating several things that might be relevant to what we're addressing in this documentary. One is that as regards policy and politics and business, there's a lot of business that doesn't really care a lot what rules they're playing under as far as what comes down from policy. It's just that they don't want their competitors to have an unfair advantage. In an era of globalization, that's become yet more complicated by the difference in environmental laws and enforcement internationally. Also, for purposes of large organizations making decisions, it's more readily done. Anything new is better, more readily incorporated by individuals than it is large groups, whether it's businesses, government, or you name it. With respect to journalism, I would observe that the primary frames of reference seem to be kind of post-Watergate and the journalism that's driven by need to score in the market, to be seen, to be sought, and some part of the frames of reference there are dealing with the cover up here is one part of it. Another part of it has to do with conflict of interest and implied conflict of interest. those are human social interaction and political sorts of skills. And I say that from having worked and been around politics a lot. I recognize political environment when I see it. And I see it in both directly and perhaps less indirectly. IPCC is fundamentally a politically driven activity. The kind of thing referred to with red pills and prior clearance of testimony, that's been going on for decades. I would point out that testimony today for Senate Environment and Public Works Committee by Roy Spencer, who resigned in 2001 after being leaned on from when he was within NASA as a noted global warming skeptic, and ran into the same thing on the other side, but he figured he was supposed to roll with the punches, and he did, and resigned in 2001. And so anyway, there's a lot to be addressed here, and I hope through question and answer discussion, and I look forward to it. I think I ran past 4 minutes, but thank you very much.
Climate change.
You know, actually, that's said tongue in cheek, but the healthcare issue and the environment issue are actually interwoven, and you can't even separate them from each other. Look at what's happening at the Olympics in China. They haven't actually shut down their entire economy, practically, their transportation system, in order to make the air clean enough for the athletes to breathe. The athletes are having to go, they're having to train actually in different parts of the world, usually train, you know, in the city where the Olympics are, but they're having to train in other parts of the world and then just fly in for the events and fly out so that they can come. Okay, so let's wake up about this, right? Wake up, world. And I think that we are. I think that, I think especially with gas prices the way they are, that finally the American consciousness is awakening to the problem. And we're beginning to get some real momentum around what we really need to do. And I was asked here, and I so appreciate it, to be asked to come, because I've come to many of the meetings, I've come to the rallies, and I've been so supportive of what you all are doing. The city of Columbia is ahead on all this. I had someone in St. Louis yesterday, or a couple of days ago, approach me and say, we should, we need to start pushing for some portfolio, energy portfolio standards and so on, And I said, well, Columbia already has those. And they're really quite successful. I was able to brag on Columbia. She had no idea. So we are a very progressive community that I'm very proud to be a part of. I just wanted to, Monta had asked me to share a little bit of what I've done in the legislature. The legislature is also beginning to wake up a little bit to these issues. We've got a Republican legislature, and it's been a little bit more difficult, but it is becoming more and more a bipartisan issue. You all have seen some of the advertisements with, I think it's Nancy Pelosi and Newt Gingrich, right? And Pat Robertson and, who's the other one with Pat Robertson? Sharpton. So there is some real bipartisan effort. People are beginning to say, we're all in this together. And I'm really, really glad to see that. I think that is going to give us the momentum that we need. The AARP, I'll borrow one of their things, divided we fail. Divided we fail. This can't be a partisan issue. We have all got to get together and say, we're going to work together to make sure something happens. So I've been working in the legislature on a few things with Walt Bibbins, who is the chair of the Energy Committee. And he's been very appreciative of the bills that I have filed, some new ideas that he actually put into a bill this year that passed out of his committee. Now, I'm not going to be there next year because I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm very excited. But 2 of the 3 bills that I put into legislation this year that passed out of committee have already been spoken for. I've got senators who want to take my bills and push them through next year. One that I'm really proud of is called MEILA. It's Missouri Alternative Energy Loan Authority. And what it would do is it would allow, it would create a low interest rate fund where people, if they wanted to make modifications to home or business, whether it be wind or solar or whatever, that they could take a very low interest loan subsidized by the state and put that modification in and pay it off with their savings. They will save money, and with the money they save, they can pay it off. Well, after 5 years or so, their savings can start coming back to them. So this is the right kind of incentive to get people to have the opportunity. Sometimes it's just that little upfront cost that's causing people not to make the modifications that they need. They don't have the $5,000 or $6,000 that now a solar panel might cost. Well, there's some, I saw them on the internet. Well, it depends. But I've seen some on the internet for $6,500 or so. We're thinking about putting one in our home. You know, it's just that one little upfront cost. Sometimes it's your barrier. So this is a program that would lower that barrier for people to do and give them the right incentives. A lot of people wanted to do tax breaks for that, and that would be ideal, probably, but we don't have money to do tax breaks. And so in the absence of having any option to do that, I thought this was a good idea that would make it so that people could actually do the things they want to do. The other was an Energy Star rating for homes. New construction would have to have an Energy Star rating. Conservation is the #1 thing we must do. I'm just on the news tonight, 2% decrease in gasoline consumption in the past month, this month over last year's month, same month. Isn't that right? Someone's clapping over there. Fabulous, you know, and it hasn't, you know, it's doable. The conservation portions of what we need to do first are completely doable. So the Energy Star rating on new construction was my way of doing that. I've done several other bills on making state buildings come into code, environmentally friendly standard code. Let's see, what else have I done? I've done a conservation bill that would make it so that farmers could have conservation easements and conserve some land in between farmland and new development. So there's all kinds of things that I've been working on that I'm very, very proud of. Really proud to work with you all on these very important issues. It's great to see a room full of people who are willing to get in there and start working on it, or continue working on this together. Thank you for having me tonight.
My part of the conversation here is to talk about what the individual can do, and, you know, as the individual, how we are, each one of us here, are part of a community. So working together, what we can do here in our community. And I think that, as some of our speakers have pointed out and the film noted, we are beginning to realize that certainly there is climate change, and rather than to fuss over, you know, identifying how much, you know, is contributed to humans and or what exact things are contributing the greenhouse gases collectively, or maybe we have particulates or different kinds of things, we do know that something's changing. And so regardless, we do need to make some intelligent moves individually and collectively to adapt and also mitigate to, you know, the best that we can. So the Columbia Climate Change Coalition is a group of both individuals that we also work in loose coalition with other groups and organizations. Certainly a lot of the environmental groups, but we've made links to some other civic organizations, and we sponsored Earth Hour, working with our city government to declare Earth Hour Day and hour, and working with local businesses. So we're really here as a tool for our community to get more active, more interwoven together. We've worked with the different faith communities in an interfaith effort. We've also worked with the Columbia Public Schools. And so we would really love to have you folks know about us and know that we really need all of us to get on board to work together, think about the changes we can make as individuals. We have loads of handouts on our table, which is one of the things that we do. We educate a lot. We can provide programs like this or events like Earth Hour to just help raise awareness and give people a way to feel connected in some kind of an activity. We also have some sorts of goals that we would like to do and need more help to accomplish them. We'd love to sort of make Columbia a miniature example of what we could do nationally and even globally in terms of a lot of, recently you'll hear people calling for an Apollo-type project. We've heard Al Gore speak, and just within the last couple of days, and recently within the last few weeks, James Hansen that we saw on the documentary spoke again before Congress saying that we're at 350 parts per million right now in terms of the gas measurements, and that we really need to get down. We're at 389 right now, and we really need to get down to 350 parts per million, which is where the scientists believe, the scientists who have studied this and are doing their best effort, and best work to understand a very difficult problem. They believe that this 350 mark, if we could get back down to that our climate would, normalize back out, and we could have, the climate is impacting, as Judy mentioned, health, it impacts business. You can see how have we recovered from Hurricane Katrina. Look at the flooding and all of these climatic events taken together. Collectively, we realize that there's a lot of damage that is going to be very difficult to recover from financially, so we need to get busy, and we need to do preparedness things. We need to do the other things that, maybe like we work with some of the gardening, the Columbia Community Garden and the Boone, or they have a big canoe gardening project, and we work with the native plants people, and a lot of different folks that we're trying to bring together to address all these parts and pieces of how we can change our lifestyles and really actually, reframe the lifestyles and find that we'll have greater health, we'll have different and more beneficial social interactions, and there are a lot of good things that can come from this. When we buy solar panels, we'll be able to affect ourselves financially. When we maybe take the bus or ride a bicycle, we save gas money. So financially, we can improve our health, we can improve our social interactions, and sometimes that means our mental health and happiness. The happiness quotient doesn't always mean we have to have more money and more things. Sometimes other things make us happy. So we're just here to offer ourselves. Please, we want you to pick up any of the information. We have a whole list of things you can do. It's sort of an interactive, check them off and give yourself a date to accomplish your, changes by. So there's a lot of good information, but we want to have time for you folks to say something, to ask some questions. So we have a few minutes that we want to take some questions from the floor, and so I'm going to let Jan do that.
Well, one thing that's happened in the past 7.5 years is that a lot of experts that had various panels have been replaced by people in the corporate pocket that is systematically over the past 7.5 years. And I'm worried that we may not be able to get much done on anything we care about unless that's changed. What are the chances that we can get that done if the election goes the way we hope?
Well, I've been spreading hope and optimism everywhere I was going because God knows we need it. And especially on this issue. Those are administrative positions. What he's talking about are the administrative positions in the Bush administration. And frankly, it's not just the administration, but it is also, you use the word insidious. There's also the insidious think tanks that have cropped up around that administration as well that puts out, I get them actually. I don't know how I got on a list of some sort, but I get their newsletters. They come to my house. So if you want to, well, and I read them because, it's like opposition research. You got to know what the other side's thinking, right? And it's scary, frankly. So these think tanks and the administration, to unravel all of that is going to take some doing. Now, my hope and optimism is this. Both presidential candidates, they have different stances on certain different policies within the new energy economy that we need to bring about, but basically they're not the global warming deniers that the current administration has in power right now. So I really think that we will be able to whatever administration is going to have much better opportunity to change things and of course that will make it so that the legislature can do the same, so that the Congress can make movement on what they need to make movement on. It's really unknown. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to shoot straight with you. there's certain things that we need to do and do first when I get there. And the Congress and the President, like I said, are going to have to work together. The Congress and the administration are going to have to work together to get these things done. But like I said, there is a groundswell of a movement. The young people especially are with us on this, and there's a groundswell of support. So I think that we're finally going to be able to get some of the things done that we need to get done. The consciousness has awoken, and hopefully we can move forward with I would prefer, I'm a Democrat, everyone knows that. I would prefer some of the Democratic ideas. Now, did y'all see Al Gore on Meet the Press yesterday?
Yeah. Yes.
2 days ago, whatever day?
Yeah.
It's all running
Sunday.
together. What did y'all think?
Good.
And he's got a new speech out also that's on the internet that you all must listen to. If he becomes, I know he doesn't want to be the energy czar or whatever, he said he doesn't want to because he wants to do this, and I think he's probably right. He will do more good changing public opinion than to getting into politics. He has that opportunity. He's an incredible personality on this issue right now with a lot of credibility. And so I think that those kinds of things are going to make the difference.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Smith. The question I have for Judy, I was very interested in your Energy Star legislation for houses. Exactly how does that work? I work for a manufactured housing company, and we're really energy efficient, proud of it. How is that going to work? How is it going to be done?
There's a certain rating called the Energy Star rating, and if you'll go on the web, you can just Google Energy Star rating, and their website will come up. And they actually have like a calculator, how you build the house, what kind of materials go into, what kind of source materials go into it, that kind of thing. And it'll rate your house on an Energy Star rating, so that you would be able to post it. So it's really quite easy to make this happen. And the thing is that, while I was doing my testimony, as I was presenting the bill, there was a lot of questions about, won't this raise the cost of the house, and won't this make it so that the manufacturer or the builder can't sell the house because it'll be more expensive or whatever. And my immediate response was, first of all, we don't know that. We don't know that it raises the price. But if it does, it's only incremental. And if you can say to your customer, to your buyer, that it's an Energy Star rated house, you can show them how much money they're going to save over time on their energy. So they get 2 bangs for their buck. They get to save the environment, save their planet, and save money at the same time. And it's actually a selling point. They have found that Energy Star rated houses actually sell faster than non-energy rated homes.
If there's a way that you would like to get involved with us, or if we can steer you to a group that's a better fit for you, we'd be happy to do any of those things. But we all do need to work together, and we're here as we kind of set ourselves up as a tool to weave our community together. So please leave your contact information with us. So thank you all for coming tonight, and please take any information from our table and leave your contact information so we can inform you of future events and keep you up on this issue.
Can we have a round of applause for our panelists? And then I'd like to suggest, if you would want to discuss something with the panelists, that you have a walking, a peripatetic conversation with them right on out the building. Okay, so that they can have this.
Put you in the parking lot.